Hello, I'm Evan Nolan, the president and co-founder of the United States Athletics Hall of Fame, here and the returning nominee for the class of 2024. Now, what Jackie Robinson was to baseball, Althea Gibson was to the then very segregated sport of tennis. Born August 1927 to sharecroppers in Silver, South Carolina, she and her family moved as part of the Great Migration in 1930 to Harlem. Now, her neighborhood in Harlem would actually shut the streets down during the day so kids could play organized sports. And Gibson got very, very good at paddleball. She actually was the New York State women's paddleball champion when she was just 12. She'd also take up boxing, and at the age of 13 would actually drop out of school, spending some time in the Catholic Center for Abused Children. But her neighborhood would come to her rescue and take up a collection for her to gain admittance to the Cosmopolitan Tennis Club in Harlem. Now, she didn't really like tennis at the beginning, thinking that it was for wimps, and she also had to fight down the urge to punch people when she started losing them at tennis. But at the age of 14, she'd enter her first tennis tournament and would win it, the American Tennis Association New York State State Championship, and her tennis career would be off and running. Now, she'd win the American Tennis Association Girls National Championships in 1944 and 45 before moving up to the women's division in 46. She'd actually lose the final that year, but then she would win 10 straight national ATA women's titles from 47 through 56. In 1946, she'd moved to Wilmington, North Carolina, and attend Williston Industrial High School, which was segregated, before getting a full scholarship to play tennis at Florida A&M University. She'd also become the first ever black woman to play in the USTA National Indoor Championships in 1949, making it all the way to the quarterfinals. Now, she'd get an invitation in 1950 U.S. Championships, which are now called the U.S. Open, becoming not only the first ever African-American player to compete in the tournament, but she was also the first ever African-American player to set foot on the court in the Forest Hills Tennis Center, just to show you how bad the segregation was. Her first round straight set 6-2, 6-2 victory over Barbara Knapp was a historic step for black athletes and a sea change for the then lily-white sport of tennis. It was a true jumping off point for her career. She won her first ever major title, or tennis title, as an adult in 1951 at the Caribbean Championships in Jamaica. And she competed in her first Wimbledon, one of the first women ever to do so that year, making it to the third round. She graduated from Florida A&M in 1953 and actually take up a job as a physical education teacher at Lincoln University, Missouri for 2 years. Remember, amateurs weren't paid back then. In 1955, the State Department would send her on a 6-week goodwill tour of Southeast Asia, with many of the locals there taking a huge like to her as a woman of color actually in an American delegation. Now, that 6-week tour would just revitalize her career. She'd stay overseas and win 16 of the next 18 tournaments she entered, mostly in Asia and Europe. In May of 1956, she'd become the first ever African-American athlete to win a Grand Slam tournament when she won the French Open singles title. She'd also win the doubles title in that tournament, partnering with British player Angela Buxton. She and Buxton would also win the doubles title again at Wimbledon in 56. But 1957 would be the greatest year of her career. She'd get to the finals of the Australian Open before winning the Wimbledon singles title, becoming the first African-American to win the tournament in its 80 years history, defeating Britain Darlene Hard in the finals. It was also the first ever champion who got presented the trophy by Queen Elizabeth II. She also won the doubles title for the second consecutive year with Darlene Hard, who she beat in the singles finals. As she once said, shaking hands with the Queen of England was a long way from being forced to sit in the colored section of a bus. She would return home to a ticker-tape parade through New York City, one of the second ever African-American athlete to receive such an honor. The first was Jesse Owens. She'd also be presented with the Bronze Medallion, which is New York City's highest civilian honor. Staying in New York, she'd actually win the 1957 U.S. Open in straight sets over Louise Brough, becoming the first African-American ever to win that title as well. In 57, she'd actually win her last 55 matches of the year and her first 2 in 58, giving her 57 straight wins, which at the time was a record. She'd also defend her Wimbledon singles and doubles titles and the U.S. Open singles title in 58, but would have to turn professional after the 58 season, as again, amateurs were not allowed to earn money at the time. She would play exhibition matches, but find she was not earning as much money playing these exhibition matches as white professionals did, many of whom she'd beaten routinely during her career. So in 1964, at the age of 37, she became the first African-American player on the LPGA as well, and at one point is ranked number 27 in the world. But in many of her LPGA events, she was forced to dress in her car because the clubhouses did not allow African-American people in there. In all, she'd win 56 titles, 5 Grand Slams, 5 doubles Grand Slams, 1 mixed doubles Grand Slam, and would be named the AP Athlete of the Year both 57 and 58. To be the first African-American athlete to grace the cover of Time magazine and the first ever female African-American athlete on the cover of Sports Illustrated. She broke down color barriers in not one, but 2 sports. It was a trailblazer who opened for doors for all who came after. She was an inspiration from beginning to end. Now, she finished 39th in our voting last year. Let's get her in the U.S. Hall of Fame in year 2. You can vote for Althea Gibson or any of our other nominees to the United States Athletics Hall of Fame at www.thausahof.com. Voting will continue between now and December 1st. We make close our polls. So vote as often as you like, as long as it's only once a day. I'll be back with another nominee soon, but until then, take care.